This will begin the lecture notes for Chapter 20, Weather, Section 2. In Section 2, we look at fronts and lows. What is a front? A front is the boundary that separates opposing air masses. And again, they can be very large. They usually form at mid-latitudes. That's where we live. And at the front, the less dense air mass is forced to rise over the more dense air. And the graphic illustrates, usually this is the cold air behind a cold front will sink down below the warmer air. And that sets up the convection currents and the wind and the weather that we get. Different kinds of fronts. We have a cold front, a warm front, stationary front, and an occluded front. And the graphic on the right illustrates what they would look like on a typical weather map. A cold front. Cold front, the boundary between an advancing cold air mass and the warmer air mass it's displacing. This type of weather depends on the type of air mass it's being displaced. In the graphic, a cold front moves in. Cold front moves in, it's going to sink down below the warmer air, and the warmer air is going to rise above it. And that convection is what creates the winds that we get associated with a cold front. A warm front, the boundary between the warm air displaces a cold air. Less dramatic weather changes. We like warm fronts. It brings in warmer, drier weather usually, unless there's a lot of moisture brought up from the Gulf. And what they look like. Once again, the warm air moves in, and it's going to rise up over the top of the colder air. And again, it's going to set up those convection currents. A stationary front is one that's not moving forward or backwards. You could say that the warm air mass and the cold air mass have the same strength, or they're of equal size. And a stationary front will tend to stall out. Occasionally over northern Wisconsin we get stationary fronts where the weather just stops, and we may get 3-4 days of cloudy, cold, maybe possibly wet, rainy weather. And an occluded front is the cold front moves twice as fast as a warm front. If a cold front catches a warm front, then precipitation and cloudiness will result. And in the graphic, we have advancing very cold air behind an occluded front, cloud development because of frontal air, lifting of the warm, moist air, and the receding cold front ahead of the occluded front. Weather associated with pressure systems. Low pressure fronts usually result in bad weather. High pressure usually equals fair weather. And we can say that in northern Wisconsin. A low usually brings in the clouds in the summer. I can say me personally as a muskie fisherman, we tend to like when that low pressure comes in, brings in those thunderstorms, and that's when the fish eat. Usually on a typical high pressure system with the high, what we call the bright blue bluebird day, or bright sunny bluebird days, typically aren't associated with good fishing activity. Okay, this will conclude the lectures for Section 2. And here, just like Section 1, here are 4 questions that you need to answer. You either need to cut and paste or retype the 4 questions, or open up a separate Word document and attach that to your My Big Campus submission.